I'd like to invite Ben, Jessica, Matt, and Mike to join me on the stage. So according to Startup Master Report, last year we had 1,465 startups, active startups in Australia. 71.3 of them was B2B startups. So obviously Australia has a passion for starting B2B businesses. But what happens when those visionary founders meet the everyday life of startup managing? And that's exactly what we are going to discuss here today with our great panelists. So I'll start by introducing them so you know a little bit more about them. Ben Brophy is the co-founder and CEO of fast-growing global cloud communication platform, Upwire, providing communication services to major global branded customers. Ben has over 15 years experience in global business communication and investment banking in Australia, UK, and USA. Jessica is the founder of Collabosaurus, a B2B marketing software that makes brands for clever collaborations. Her passion for creative brand experience and marketing moved her from a background in fashion, publicity, and SME education to developing Collabosaurus. Jess now runs entrepreneurial events around Australia and has built the Collabosaurus platform for over 4,500 members. Yeah, round of applause.
That's an old stat, but cool.
That's what I got, sorry. Matt is the co-founder and CEO of DoneSafe, the people safety software, co-founder of Whistly, making whistleblowing safe and easy, and the chief investment officer at Black Nova Group. Obviously, he's a busy guy. Prior to founding, Matt was a performance improvement manager with some of Australia's largest corporations. And last but not least, Michael Sharkey is the co-founder and CEO of Autopilot, a visual and simple marketing platform used by thousands of businesses around the world to acquire new leads, send personalized messages, and automate repetitive tasks. Previously, Michael built a tradesman booking system and later joined his brother working on a holiday accommodation website. I don't know if you guys know it. Stays. It means something to anyone. And it was sold to HomeAway for $225 million. I hope that stat is correct. After Stays, Michael and his brother co-founded a consulting agency called Sharkey Media. And it was during this time Autopilot was born. Michael has over 12 years of experience building high-growth companies, including 5 years in the Silicon Valley, and has raised over $33 million from investors, including Salesforce Ventures, Rembrandt Partners, Blackbird, Southern Cross, Tim Draper, and others. So as you can see, we have a very successful group of people on the stage, and I'm also armed with some very good questions that we got from the Sydney startup online community, and let's kick this off. Bless you. Yeah. Let's start at the beginning. I want to go through your journey from starting to scaling the business up. Now, like everything in life, there are the things that we know, the things that we know we don't know, and the things that we don't know we don't know. So going back to your early days, what was the thing you wish you knew before you started being a startup founder? I'm going to start with Ben, maybe. And I'm going to sit down.
Is it on? Oh, yeah.
Yep.
What did I wish I knew? Probably the lack of sleep that I was about to take on. We started our business in 2008. I think at the time, there was a few Aussie tech companies that had done pretty well. Not a lot at that stage. And I think when we started, it was just two of us in a shed like everybody else that starts a business. And I think that we underestimated truly the amount of work that we were going to have to do, one, and just the amount of negativity that comes with starting a business. And that is negativity towards, from the public, as when you go to raise money, investors, or people that just think this is an easy ride, you guys are living a great lifestyle and whatever. And I think we really underestimated what would that would be like and the impact on friends and family.
Ben? Mike? I'd love to hear your point.
Yeah, I've never had like a proper job, so I've sort of had a long job, but I started when I was in year 11 in high school. My brother had started Stays at the time, and I joined him. So my perception of maybe normal reality of taking a risk and like quitting a job is sort of jaded a little bit from that. But I think the Autopilot story is probably the most interesting one, which is like I had to get married to my longtime girlfriend so I could get her a visa to go and live over in San Francisco, which is where we started the company. I had to make 3 of my employees get married to their longtime girlfriends. I then told Business Insider, a journalist there, what I had done, and she printed it. And then their like families and wives found out, and then they really hated me for about 3 years. So yeah, all sorts of weird shit that has happened along the way. And I must admit, I think the thing that I have had to learn the hard way is I've made so many shit mistakes or really bad mistakes along the way, and I continue to do so. And you live with those mistakes; they sort of haunt you and scar you. And you know, like I've had to make redundancies, and I've had to hire a lot of people. I've had to fire people, and all those horrible parts of it that no one really talks about or is open about. You hear often of like, you know, Canva and those guys have done such a fantastic job in what they've done, but it just sounds like this amazing ride, and I'm sure they have just as many war stories to tell along the way. So.
Definitely. I think that as a founder, when you're starting out, you realize you have to do so many things like marketing, legal, finance, and everything. So, Jessica, what was the most overwhelming thing that you had to learn when you started out?
Tech. I didn't know anything about coding, about building anything tech. Interesting about what I wish I'd known. I actually reckon I don't wish. If I could go back, there's nothing I would change, because if I had known that it would take, you know, years and years and years to get to the point I thought in my head at the time would take 10 minutes, and all the skill set and everything that I needed to sort of learn along the way, I probably wouldn't have done it. So I'm kind of grateful for that naivety that I started out with. But the most overwhelming thing for me was not knowing what I didn't know about tech, and I made massive mistakes at the beginning in terms of investing incredibly heavily in development before we had product market fit, well before we had customers. I was like, let's build it right the first time, and I'm not even going to tell you how much money I spent of like my own money on that first product, because I was so sure that's exactly what, that you build it once and they will come in the end, and I won't need any more budget for ongoing feature changes and all that kind of stuff. And I mean, we're about 4 years down the track now, and I can code, which is cool. I coded this morning. So I've picked up those skills along the way, and also learned a valuable lesson about what things cost and what you should pay for things. And I'm a massive, massive believer in the whole lean startup method, where you just build something kind of shitty to begin with, test it, make sure it works before you invest in tech.
Matt, what was overwhelming for you?
I think for me it was the learning that I had to learn to walk again effectively, and so I came out of a pretty senior corporate career. I'd always had many pats on the back throughout that career that, oh, you're doing a great job, you're doing all of these great things, you're winning all of these awards, and then all of a sudden you jump into running your own business, and you go. I walked in. I remember my co-founders here from my first business, DoneSafe, and I walked in thinking, I've got this. I know what I'm doing. 6 months, we'll be smashing it, and then all of a sudden, I'm just swamped by all of this administration that I'd never had to do before, because I'd always been a manager in business, and I had a team of people to deal with that stuff. And so one of the things I always recommend and recommend to startups now that I mentor and invest in is get your legals right from day one, and invest in good advice up front, because using some of the sort of the cheaper services you might choose to use as an early stage startup can really come and bite you later on.
Thanks, that's a very good advice. So with all the overwhelming stuff, to be a co-founder or a sole founder? That's the question. And I think you're the only one here that is actually a sole founder. Did it all by yourself. So
That's why you're over there, Jess.
I'm here on the end, as the sole founder. Yeah. I think that's just because I didn't, I'm not opposed to a co-founder, I think, but I can't now go back and be like, I'll take on a co-founder. You either founded the business with someone or you didn't. I would definitely take on a business partner, and I have done that. About a year into the business, I took on a business partner who was very well versed in that tech space. We did that for about a year and a half, and then the opportunity came up for me to buy that person out, and he had plenty of other projects he was working on at the time, and so it worked really well, and he stayed on it as an advisor. So I'm back to being a sole founder again.
So on your next startup, would you be doing it all by yourself again, or would you look for someone to join you?
Or I have been burned many, many, many times. Actually, interesting about your legal advice. I ended up in a legal battle with a family member about a year into the business, and it was an absolute nightmare. So my trust is shot. So I think starting a business with someone else, I'd have to know and trust and have worked with that person before, and take baby steps with it, I think, as well. Like, going into it and being like, cool, here's your 50%, here's my 50%, and like, let's go. It's like, that's a massive deal, and that can come back to bite you if they're not the right personality. So I'd be open to it if it was someone I really knew and trusted, and knew that they could bring skill set and networks and stuff that I couldn't, and we could each fill each other's kind of skill set gaps.
Okay, so Mike obviously went to the other end of the story and actually worked with your brother, which is a risky move for some of the people here at least. Would you do it all over again? Obviously you did, but next time. And
Yeah, I don't know.
would you recommend someone to work with family or people that I actually don't know, or by yourself?
Yeah, Chris and I have worked together forever, so it's really hard to have a frame of reference. I remember venture capitalists in Silicon Valley would always be like, "Oh, what's it like working with your brother?" I'm like, I literally have no other reference point. Like, this is my only reference point. But yeah, it's been really good for us. We work really well together, and have for a very long time. So I don't really have any. I mean, we like yell at each other and fight and stuff if you want like the goss, but I don't think that's very useful for anyone in the room. But
No, it's actually useful. Like,
okay.
How do you solve it? Like, you fight with your brother, then you have to have dinner with
I
him,
think when I say fight, I think we have the business world and the private life. Like, we both have kids now, and so we spend a lot of time together outside
I
of
hope
work
you didn't
and at work.
do kids just for the visa sake or something like that, right?
No.
Okay, good.
Maybe I've said too much, but no, it's a really good working relationship, and I don't just say that as like a PR thing or anything like that. Like, we genuinely get along and love working together and building software, and that's been the foundation of like our business partnership, and then also like being brothers as well.
Ben? Yeah.
Well, I can't write one line of code, so my business partner is imperative to my business. But just saying that, I mean, he doesn't get up on stage and talk. I say anyone, co-founding is fantastic. There is a trust thing that I agree with Jess. But, I would say if you're going to co-found, never get a person or a friend, family, if your personalities are the same, because it will never work. You have to have polar opposites and bring in different skills. My business partner and I are polar opposites on personality, and our skill set is completely different, and that's why it works. I mean, you have your little bust-ups, but he's kind of like a brother to me, right? We trust each other unequivocally. We've gone through this incredible personal journeys of, his wife getting cancer and almost dying and all these things together. It brings you closer and closer, but I can't have my business without him, and he can't have it without me, and it works perfectly. I couldn't have done it any other way.
Fair enough. So I'm going back to the Startup Master Report, where 33% of founders said they wish they had marketing skills on their founding team. Now, I'm going to ask two different sides of the equation. Mike, you had obviously a lot of marketing experience, and that's your background. Did you find it helpful for your startups and at least for the early days and kind of like website messaging strategy, whatever?
Yeah, so we learn a lot through stays. Chris brought me in at the time because really it was all about dominating search engines back then. So when we say marketer, I guess I didn't study marketing at university. I don't really know like public relations stuff. Obviously, look at me. But I fundamentally just saw it as a engineering problem, right? Like, we needed to rank for a whole bunch of keywords, and if we didn't, we would not be successful. If we did, we would be very successful. And I think that's something that people really overlook today, is the discoverability of their business. So they ignore things like people are searching to solve problems all the time fundamentally. And so with Autopilot, it was funny, like a lot of that we sort of ignored because we were very much focused on the product. It's only really recently now that we've started to focus on making sure that all of the problems people are searching for around automation or trying to solve repetitive tasks in their business that were being found for again. I forgot what your question was. I'm just ranting.
It's okay. I'll just switch to Matt. Matt, help me here. As someone who came from a completely different background, obviously, do you agree with this saying, like that you would need the marketing skills on your founding team, or at least your first few hires? Or
Yeah, look, I think if you don't have them, it is definitely one of the most important hires you can make. Getting the right marketing person into your business, it's one of those interesting things. So for Matt and I, neither of us had been marketing as a background. We'd both toyed in marketing. My business partner had a management consulting background, so again he touched those areas. But effectively, we had to sort of hack some things together in the early days, and I'm not proud of some of the things we did when we started. But one of the very first hires we made was a digital marketer, and really we noticed immediately the improvements. But I think also effectively as our business grew, getting in somebody who really understood marketing, was marketing disciplined and had helped businesses like us, really, I guess, moved the needle.
okay, thanks. Now we're going to touch on a very painful issue for all B2B startups. It came up in every conversation I had coming up to this panel. Sales. Okay. What was your shortest and your longest sales cycle? And we'll go just one by one. Jessica, I heard a very interesting story.
We were just
I
talking
know.
about this. So I recently came back from the US. I did 3 months over in San Francisco and kind of hopped between LA, New York and San Francisco while I was there. I initially went over there to kind of meet investors and raise capital, and then that very quickly turned into customer acquisition, just because that those were the opportunities that were sort of organically coming, and I couldn't ignore them. So interestingly, for Collabosaurus, the sales cycle in Australia, typically from the moment someone hears about and finds out about Collabosaurus from not knowing us from a bar of soap, through to when they make a purchasing decision, is anywhere between like 6 to 9 months on average. Whereas in the States, I found the average conversion time from all of that to happen was 48 hours, and our first client to do that was Walmart. So you can imagine me completely like shitting myself when that came through. It was like, this is a joke. Like, one of the largest companies in the world has like found out about us, signed up, and like converted to paid customer within a 48-hour period, which was crazy to me. So the sales process and acquisition time for us is like really, really vastly different in Australia versus the US. And I think that really comes down to, for us, the education of the market, I suppose, and kind of what's happening in the landscape. So collaboration marketing has been around forever as a concept, partnerships and teaming up with complementary businesses for really clever marketing campaigns. But I think in the US, when it comes to networking and opportunities and making stuff happen, things just happen a lot quicker, and the understanding of, partnerships and collaborations is a lot quicker as well. So there's a lot more educating of the market we need to do here.
Yeah, fair enough. Ben, shortest and longest sales cycle?
Well, shortest. So we started this in 2008. Shortest stay. I met a customer of mine in the gym. I sold him what we had, which actually was no product at all. So completely lied. He signed up the next week. I kept having to install him and saying his data was wrong. The system was breaking because of his data. We had to build something in 3 weeks. So that's the bad story. I do agree with Jess. Australia is a market that doesn't take enough risk, and they don't take enough risk with new technologies and smaller technologies. I find that the UK, well, Europe and America especially, sales cycles in America are so much shorter. For us, a little bit different to marketing. A lot of our services hold a lot of secure information and whatever. But we're just bringing on a very large payments program in the US, and that's taken a week. I'd say in Australia that'd take 9 to 10 months longer.
Wow, that's a big difference.
Yeah.
Matt?
Yeah, so look, I guess in terms of our fastest, our fastest was we managed to have a conversation with somebody effectively at a trade show. This was in North America as well. And then within 4 weeks, they were basically signing a contract, and off we went. That was a very large enterprise deal. But funnily enough, our fastest one in Australia was Telstra. So we...
Really?
Yeah, and like... and so... and Telstra are an incredible customer for us. They've been...
Stop it.
Wait a second. Who do you know in Telstra? That's the question. Who did you drink beer with?
So we were really fortunate that they were looking at another vendor, and effectively we swooped in last minute, picked it up, and then were kicking off projects with them about 4 weeks later. So it was really, really fast. Our longest one, funnily enough, the very first trade show that Matt and I did in Queensland, and really amateur in comparison to trade shows we've done since. We'd been basically down to Officeworks printing the night before and desperately trying. But we decided to give a drone away, and pretty much everyone at that trade show was looking at DoneSafe and going, "A drone safe? You fly drones?" No, we don't fly drones. We do health and safety software. But anyway, we managed to give away a drone to somebody, and this was, nearly 4 years ago, and they've literally just come back onto our doorstep now. We're about to sign a contract with them. So
4 years. Anyone had a longer cycle than 4 years here? I don't see any hands. You won. Mike?
So we sell to predominantly small businesses, startups, people like that. So it can be as short as a day, but our average sales cycle is 27 days. We have a 30-day trial, so generally people configure and then install in the 27th day is the most common.
Cool. So 6 to 9 months. How do you deal with such a long sales cycle? How do you avoid the value of death going there?
Well, I mean, I came from a background in marketing, and I love marketing. So we do a fair bit around like a customer journey funnel, and we do a lot around getting people to find like awareness, find out about us in the first place, and then we have a pretty clear funnel that is different from the US versus Australia. So the funnel in Australia is, we do everything from publicity to organic social media to PR stuff, and then typically what happens in Australia is that customers will go into the free masterclass course on how to do collaboration marketing. And through that course, we can really start to demonstrate how valuable they can be. Through Collabosaurus, they're about 25 times less expensive than digital advertising, which is crazy valuable for any small business. So through that funnel, we can then sort of educate the market. But all of this is very automated. So I've made sure that, a lot of what we do around awareness and then customer engagement and trust building is automated. So it's not like I'm going in and having a meeting every month for those 9 months or anything like that. Our main target is small to mid-sized companies, and a lot of that happens organically.
Okay, cool. Ben?
We're quite lucky, I guess. Our big end of customers, they spend quite a lot per month on our products, so on our platform. So we don't need a lot of them to come on in at once, and when they do come on, they grow organically. That particular customer. So, one being Computershare uses us globally around the world, and they just keep on bringing different divisions within. So, yes, it takes 10 months to bring on something like that, but that its revenue goes X times within 3 months and just keeps growing. So we don't need to generally bring on too many of those. But yeah, the 9-month gap is going to be a problem, right? So, through partnerships and whatever, we do a bit more focus in the US to close that and just build out that funnel. And then by the sounds of it, I need to hire someone in marketing.
Yeah, look, I think at the end of the day, always be selling. You've always got to be adding to the top of the funnel, and if you're not doing that, your business is going to die. Like at the end of the day, most of the things that you see coming to the top won't get to the end. Even if you are the best company on the planet, it just so happens that every conversation you have does not convert into a deal. So I think constantly be adding to the pipeline. Marketing is incredibly important. We're very lucky at DoneSafe that we've built a great inbound engine, which turns obviously a lot of those turn into customers for us, and we have quite a high conversion rate, but that doesn't mean that we don't get out to every trade show and shake every hand and kiss every baby. It's really important.
There's a baby out there if you want. Yeah. There's a lot of criticism about Australian founders that don't think global from day one. Do you agree with that? Did you have this mindset to begin with? Do you think it helped you push the boundaries faster? Move to the US or things like that? Jessica?
Looking back, I was very globally minded from day one. I thought, this is the next Facebook, and this is going to be huge. And oh my gosh, we could help companies in America collaborate with companies in Australia in like a 5-minute period, and how fantastic. So I actually did start out with that kind of ambition and that excitement. However, you get into plugging away, working in the business rather than on the business. And, probably about 2 years in, I got really, really comfortable kind of in Australia. We had things working pretty much like clockwork and things were really steadily growing. I wouldn't say they're like skyrocketing or anything like that, but it was really incremental and it was steadily growing. And I was, weaning off my cafe hours while I was building Collabosaurus and consulting hours. So I kind of got really comfortable, and then an opportunity came up to go to San Francisco, and it kind of came out of the blue, and I thought, oh, why not? I haven't done anything like outside of my comfort zone for a while, and it was hugely out of my comfort zone, but one of the best things I ever did. So that kind of reignited that global view again, and the people that I met in San Francisco, it was just like the amount of opportunity that was out there was mind-blowing. So all of a sudden I was back again into that excitement that I felt when I started. So I would disagree that Australians overall don't think globally. I definitely do. I just think that it's easy to start working in a small market. Australia is quite a small market, but it's such a great place to test a product. Like the Australian market is a hard one to crack, and I feel like if you can make all your mistakes in Australia, customers, what I found, were super understanding and super kind, and I'm so glad we made those mistakes here rather than make them in America. They could be way more costly.
Thanks. We don't have a lot of time, so Mike.
Oh,
You're not going to go away with that.
going global. I'm going to answer the last question because I think it's actually, I have more knowledge about that than this one. So I think
You can
everyone...
moderate the panel if you want to.
Yeah, whatever.
Okay.
So the thing that I would encourage everyone to do with the longer sales cycles, we have a lot of data from a lot of different companies. And so the funniest thing we've learned is that people who stay in touch more frequently with their customers are generating twice as much revenue, right? So it's a simple fact, and it sounds really obvious, right? But basically over that 9-month or 6-month sales cycle, keep communicating, send them emails, updates, funding announcements, whatever. Try and automate it if you can. If you can't, just use MailChimp and just send one email after the next, and keep a good habit of it. Because it works. We have the data. It 100% works, and it frustrates the hell out of me that our customers, they know it works, and most of the time we're trying to just push them and be like, keep doing it because we have the data and we know it works. In terms of going global, I spent 5 years in San Francisco, and I would say that you do learn a lot being there, and you make a lot of great connections. But Australians are super global. I think have much more global outlook than anyone in the US by far. The great thing about the internet is it's somewhat of a level playing field. You can go to different regions and countries. The thing that we've learnt most recently is definitely localizing our content and our product. One of the big initiatives we have now is like totally multilingual because there's certain cultures that expect that. Leo would know the French. They're getting a bit picky. They want our product in French now, so we're doing that. Yeah.
We don't have a lot of time, and I do want to open it up for the audience to ask some questions. But last kind of like question. Let's say that you walk out of this room and someone acquire you and you're a billionaire tomorrow morning. Would you do it all over again?
Yes.
No. I'm a billionaire. We've got to stop.
I don't know. Do you?
You know what I would do though?
Yeah.
I would, because we were very lucky. We had a really good investor first on, seed investor. He's been amazing for us, and I think I would love to be a billionaire and absolutely destroy the VC market in Australia because it's terrible here. And I'd love to help and support the smaller businesses of Australia, and we need better people in doing that than the big VC guys that really just like, yeah.
Yeah,
I think I did this last year, and I can't believe I got asked back about the VC channel. We're
they're
not
up
raising
later.
money, by the way.
Matt, you were going to say?
Yeah, look, no, I'd absolutely do it again but I think to that point, it's really important to be giving back, and that's if I look at sort of at DoneSafe, it's going really well, and we're continuing to grow. I've been really fortunate to be able to be involved in Wisply and now with Black Nova Group, which actually mentors and invests in early stage businesses, and so I think that is really the next step for anyone who has a successful exit is to build the next thing, and maybe that's somebody else doing some of the harder yards.
I would do it again in a different capacity. I can't wait to start investing in other startups. I feel like I've seen so much now from the startup side, and I could come to that investing landscape with a completely different lens to a lot of the investors who maybe haven't built startups before. We were talking before about marketing people. I have that skill set, and I would love to work on exciting projects of other people as well. If I had billions of dollars, I mean, how fun would that be? Yep. I would do it again. I love startups, but I would do it with staff. Staff would be good and a good night's sleep.
Resources, yeah. Mike?
Oh, some of what they said. We can keep going. It's not that useful, really.
Okay,
I don't mean that rudely. I just mean like
okay.
I don't know what I'd answer. Probably a big holiday.
A big holiday, okay. Anyone from the crowd, from the audience, has important questions? I can keep on. I have so many questions, but I really want you guys to take part as well. We have a brave one, yeah.
Yes. What would you recommend to an early stage startup? Like what things mistakes that you made that you will change or anything like that?
Look, I think the biggest thing an early stage startup can do is really get a good understanding of what's the problem they're solving, why they're solving it, why are they passionate about it. Get the why right first. That's definitely the most important thing. I think, a lot of startups launch when it's not the right time in the market. It might be the perfect product, but it might be 5 years too early or 5 years too late. I think just the more testing you can do of your idea will put you up in a better place for success.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I've got a quick question for Mike because I think he's really important.
I shouldn't have trolled you from up here.
One of the value of B2B Rocks, and I didn't say that in the opening talk, is like the no bullshit aspect about it. I really like Mike for that, and all the other panelists, Ben as well. So, quick question for you is obviously, you co-founded Autopilot with your family members. So it's a bit controversial, but would you do it again? Would you encourage people to start a business with, their partner, their, brother in your case?
Yeah, I'd start another business with him again as a reference point for sure. Yeah, we actually already have another crazy idea that we'd like to do next, but we're really passionate about Autopilot, so I don't know how far it'll go or keep going. So it does keep compounding, so that's good.
Yep.
So when you listen to founders who are doing quite well, you often hear that they're thinking in a quite sophisticated way about sales and how to look at generating sales. How much of that did you know starting out? How much of it did you develop over time? And then in your second businesses, how much has that helped you get started again? Like how important is this and how quickly can someone starting out develop it, basically, is the main question.
So the answer is I knew absolutely nothing about it. I thought I knew a lot about it. Again, I walked in with all the bravado and confidence of, somebody who'd come out of a senior corporate career. And I think you learn it all really quickly and you make a hell of a lot of mistakes in the early days. So absolutely, if I look at my second business and my third business, they're scaling way faster than my first business did in the first couple of years. But that being said, having secondary businesses also allows me to bake those lessons into my first business. So you're always learning. And it's funny, you miss a lot of things in the early stage that you pick up in the later stage, but sometimes you miss them, later on as well, and you can bake them back in. Yeah.
We have another question here.
So from a timeline perspective, what is the timing you reckon is when you think you should be moving into a US market or you should be trying other markets, once you tested the Australian market?
I don't think you have to move into the US market at all. I think there's some extremely amazing Aussie and Kiwi businesses that, worth hundreds of millions of dollars that will never go to the US at all. I think the US will eat you alive if you are not prepared for it. And then I know businesses, startups that have raised money to go over there and they're going, oh shit, this is impossible. If I was suggesting to anyone to go to America, and I was talking about this in DC, I would always get a customer in America when you're in Australia and go over with them. But I wouldn't get off the plane and go, right, I'm going to crack it.
How do you know it's the right time to?
There's never a right time, right? It's like having kids. There's never a right time, but these things just happen. Like for us, we were global within the first couple of months of our business because of that custom. We nurtured it from Australia, and I think for us, we needed sleep. So we know we needed somebody on the ground over there. But I would say if you have to be super prepared. Yes, Jess went over there and got Walmart, but I can give you 100 other stories where they've come home and it's failed. So you don't need to be over there.
I might just add a little bit to that. I completely agree. I think, and also it might not be America necessarily. It might be Europe. It might be, and there's a lot of great, especially depending on your business. If you look at Australia, there's a lot of great Commonwealth countries that have got similar laws and legislations and things that you might have much quicker success in. But that being said, if you're going to take North America, go over there, spend some time over there, meet, your potential customer. It's the same, when you're starting an early stage business anywhere, you need to go through and test it and validate it in that market as well, because they buy differently. They may buy more quickly, but they churn more quickly, which is interesting. They expect so much more customer service than what Australians expect from various businesses. So
absolutely, totally agree with that. There's way more it takes longer for Collabosaurus to close a client in Australia, but the loyalty of those clients, they stick around. And I think, in the US, of course, we still have Walmart, thank goodness. But I did notice with a lot of the smaller businesses in the US, they are very, they're happy to take a risk and they sign up and they give it a go. But if that doesn't work for them, or if you don't get in contact within a super short time frame, that's gone, they churn. So yeah, the metrics definitely shift. In terms of timing, the reason we kind of thought it was a good idea is we started looking at organically what was happening. I just had a look at Google Analytics, where our traffic was coming from, where our inquiries were coming from, from other countries most, and the US was the next for us. Yeah.
You have a question? Yep.
Yeah, I have a question regarding scalabilities. So for medium enterprises or medium startups like us, we're having a lot of deals flow. However, because we were growing, we couldn't keep a strong overhead. We couldn't keep a strong amount of resources. Hence, when the deals flow came in, we were struggling with finding people. But then to cater to all of these deals flow, if we were to hire a lot of people in the beginning, we would have such a high overhead cost. So it's a bit of a dilemma. And I'm currently facing, I believe a lot of B2B is facing it as well, chicken and egg. How would you go about solve it?
Not sleep. I'm being serious. You got to play as though you're a bigger company than what you are. And you got to fake that as much as you possibly can. Overhead's terribly expensive. Literally, when we started this, for a year and a half, I was on 2 hours an hour sleep a day with my business partner. You have to pretend as though you're bigger, and you just can't have the headcount. You simply, if you're going to market out there, that's the other thing about marketing. If you're going to market and leads are going to come in, you got to be ready to take those leads. Otherwise, don't spend the money on marketing, because if you can't fulfill them once as a small company, you're stuffed. That lead will come through once, right? So that's when you do think of marketing. Yeah, it's a super important position, but if you can't handle the leads, don't do it. Stay small. Wait till you have enough money to afford the resources, then go out. But if you can't afford the resources, you just less sleep.
And on top of less sleep, I think the other thing is just effectively you need to be a really strong, relationship manager post. So you need to keep that relationship really warm and cozy while you're not delivering. So, yeah.
We have time for one more question, one last one. Yep. It's not on.
Okay. Yeah. Hi, my name is Bharat. Thanks for the panel, by the way. Can you guys give an insight into, from a technology perspective, right? How much issues were there? Were there issues all the time? Because for startups, that's one of the challenges, right? They think they are the only one facing these issues. Can we go live with these issues? And when a customer complains, like the whole team's morale go down. So give an insight into how much technical challenges were there with the product during the different stages of your business.
Yeah, I can answer that in 27 seconds. Yeah, enormous challenges as you scale up. I think it's actually one of the underestimated challenges about building software, right? Like the user experience, you've got to keep it really fast. It's got to work, especially in what we do, automation. If it doesn't work, people get really upset. And it's really trial by fire. You have to adapt and keep up over time. So you've got to have really good engineers, but also be willing to learn along the way. So one of the things that I see people doing a lot of the time is committing to business potentially they can't do a really good job of. So we've gotten really good at saying no to certain size customers that we couldn't support early on, and now today we can. So it's an easier issue, but definitely having. I can give you a quick story. There's a big health fund in New York called Oscar Healthcare, and talking about them backing US people backing startups. It was like about 2 weeks after we had launched, they came to us and they said, "Hey, we want to use you guys. We love your visual canvas. We want to do everything on this." And at the time in our product, we didn't have the option to stop sending duplicate emails. So it would just, the automation was working so well, it would just keep looping. And so they literally set up a loop, not really our fault, but they sent, and it made the New York Times. It was like Oscar Healthcare breaches like every privacy act in the world. So we lost that customer, but you learn from those things, and now we have a lot of smarts built into our canvas that doesn't do stuff like that. So it is trial and error, and sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you don't.
Thanks, Mike. Unfortunately, we're out of time. We have so many other questions, but thanks. Jessica, Ben, Matt, and Mike for your time today. We really got a peep into your life as a scale-up founders. And I think if there's something I took from today is that running a startup is like riding a roller coaster. Once you're up, sometimes you're down. You're probably going to throw up on the way, but at least you enjoy the ride. So thank you very much, everybody.